joined with my brother, the great Ben McBride.
Hey,
What's up, Ben?
what's up, everybody? Yeah, just Big Bride coming in live with you all, trying to continue to work.
Yeah, well, we are so grateful to have folks continuing to reach out to us and ask us for updates as relates to the arson that was attempted at our church about 3 weeks ago. We hung up a Black Lives Matter banner on a Tuesday afternoon, and by that evening, in the midnight hour, someone had attempted to set our church on fire by setting fire our trash bins attached to our building. And so obviously it has ruffled all of our feathers and created a lot of angst and concern. And we put out a clarion call, and we just want to appreciate everyone for all your continued support. Myself, my brother, my family, our church really wanted to make sure we gave folks an update on what has happened, given the generosity, and that's why we're here. That's right, Ben?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that the last few weeks has demonstrated is that we all have the capacity to really come alongside one another when we are in crisis and to support one another. And so we certainly want to thank everyone. We asked initially for some support to help both get the church rebuilt, to actually resource some of the initial security that we need to get going in order to make sure that both the house of worship and the folks that are providing service in that have safety and security that they need, and set a goal for $25,000. And in less than a week, we actually, in less than 48 hours, we went beyond that. So we want to just extend deep appreciation for raising $43,000 and some change over the last few weeks. And so we want to offer deep appreciation for everyone that made a contribution individually, from your church, your organization, from your foundation. A deep thank you.
Yeah, and we thought that it'd be good, we thought it'd be good just to do a quick recap. We have a little video montage that kind of summarizes what took place, and so before we give you some more updates, one of which I think is quite significant given our call to action from our city leaders and others that day when we were gathered in the parking lot of our church, socially distancing, but still calling out for some justice and some measured responses that match the tragedy of the incident. We thought we give you guys some really cool updates. So let's take a quick look at the video and just remind ourselves kind of what brought us to this moment.
We're gathered here this morning, not because of a positive situation, but we are gathered here this morning because right here, less than 48 hours ago in Berkeley, California, we have experienced what we believe to be an expression of racial terror focused on Black people who have sought in this city and in this region for 40 years to try to bring about both spiritual and social change by also challenging the vestiges of white supremacy and anti-Black racism.
When my minister arrived here yesterday morning around 9:30, he drove onto the parking lot, and as you can see, the damage, there was 2 trash containers there.
You can see how tall the flames got, several feet up in the air here at the back of the Way Christian Center. It's a predominantly Black church here in Berkeley. Thankfully, the flames did not get past this wall, all thanks to a watchful neighbor who says he saw a man purposely set these trash bins on fire.
What really struck me was how intentional his action seemed.
For 40 years, we've never had any problems with people burning trash cans in the back of our building. So the day we put up a Black Lives Matter sign, I guess it's a coincidence that somebody wanted to burn trash cans attached to our building. With this act of terror, the only notification I received, or our church received, was this report slid underneath the front of our church. No phone call to our church. No phone call to me, the pastor. No one from the city called us. It continues to let me know that we have leaders who claim to be progressive that still offer minimal protection and response to the pain of Black people in this country.
Pastor McBride is one of the leading civil rights activists in this country. And how is it that every time a police investigate an arson, they say, we'll investigate, see if it's arson, and then we'll make a determine later whether it's hatred or not? That is nothing but some jive terms. If somebody comes to burn down a church run by a Black minister who's working on behalf of human rights and justice for all people, we know it's hatred.
My daughters were weeping last night. Not because her dad is a criminal, because her dad is a racist or a white supremacist. She's weeping because her dad is fighting for justice.
It's important that we all show up here today, that we're all here today, because the mayor's not here. So I guess we're the mayors of Berkeley now. There shouldn't be a better get out the vote sign than this right here. This is the best get out the vote message that we could have. And I don't just mean the national get out the vote, I mean here in our own Bay Area, get out the vote. Because we need to elect politicians who will show up when things like this happen.
Sometimes we shy away from calling it what it is. It is domestic terrorism. It is an attempt to silence the voice of those who stand up not only to read verses, but to have a prophetic voice and to call injustice, injustice. But the beauty of this moment is it's almost a moment of validation, because when they set your church on fire, you know you're on the right track. When they try and destroy what the work you're trying to do, you know you're on the right track. When you don't get a call from the mayor, you're on the right track. When the chief of police doesn't contact you, it's because you're on the right track. The building was never the church. The church was always the people. So you can burn the building, but you won't burn the ministry or the message or the gospel or the witness.
We as people are committed to the practice of nonviolence, but we are people that are also committed to Black people. And we are committed to the protection of Black people. And so we stand as a unit to send a message that white terrorism will not run us off the block. We have been here, we will continue to be here, and we want to thank all of our faith leaders for standing in solidarity. When Black people are under attack, what do we do? Stand up. What do we do? Stand up. What do we do? Stand up. When Black people are under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that. When Black people are under attack, what do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that. What do we do? Stand up like that.
Yeah, so as you can see, we stood up and we fought back and we did it together as a community. And I want you to keep reminding yourself that that's how we win. That's how we win. Individuals don't change systems. People change systems. Institutions change systems. Organizations binding together across our difference. It literally forces systems to respond. And so that's part of what we have experienced. I received a letter. It is dated on August 11th. I received it actually last Sunday in our mailbox. And I thought that I'd read this letter to you all as an expression of what our solidarity produced. We certainly still have not caught the individual who set this fire, but we know that the role of church fires is to create terror. It is to isolate and to make us feel marginalized as if we are here by ourselves. We know that the anemic responses of elected officials and our government systems from the federal all the way down to the local, it engenders more acts of terror because there is not a swift response, a denunciation of the response, or investigations often that catch the arsonist. And so this letter that I'm going to read was dated August 11th. And I'm just going to read it for you. Dear Pastor McBride and the congregation of the Way Church, on behalf of the Berkeley Fire and Police Departments, we want to extend our deepest apology for failing to notify you in a timely manner of the trash bin fire on July 29th, 2020. We should have made every attempt to promptly connect with you and your congregation, as you are deeply important to the community. In reflecting on our response, we acknowledge the need to not only look at our policies and procedures, but to look at ourselves and understand how our actions are informed by our own privilege and biases. We strive to do better. Moving forward, we have set forth specific notification protocols for all faith-based groups and issues concerning potential hate crimes and incidents. We, more importantly, want to continue to challenge ourselves and our employees to understand how their actions are informed by unconscious bias so we can better serve all members of our community. We understand that hate crimes are intended to instill fear and sow divisiveness in our community. We take these matters very seriously and are committed to improving our departments and ourselves. And to this end, we would be honored to spend time with you to listen to your ideas as to how we can better partner to build confidence and trust. This is signed by David Brannigan, the fire chief of the Berkeley Fire Department, and Andrew Greenwood, the chief of police of the Berkeley Police Department, CC D. Williams Ridley, the city manager, Paul Budenhagen, the deputy city manager, David White, the deputy city manager, and Abe Roman, the deputy fire chief of the city of Berkeley. This letter is apologizing for their anemic response. I would argue their failed response in the immediate aftermath of our arson. And I just want to say publicly, I accept your apology on behalf of our community. We accept your apology, and we want to continue to invite not only the systemic and structural change we want and need, but we are planning indeed to bring all of our loved ones who stood with us into a conversation with these individuals and leaders of our city to make sure we can get the continued work of justice done. What do you think about that, Ben?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's important for us to recognize that as people of faith across all of our different traditions and just people of goodwill and values across all of our communities, it is our responsibility to stand up not just against the face of injustice, anti-Black racism that shows up in our systems and structures, but to stand up against the way in which it shows up in cultural ways and terroristic ways. It's going to be important for us to recognize that we cannot be silent and just take this kind of abuse on the chin and take it silently. And I think one of the things I'm hoping we can all take from this moment is that when we are under attack, we must stand up, we must make some noise, we must make it public. And so I just think it's important, particularly for Black people, for us to recognize that even though we have lived, all of us, our whole lives in a culture of anti-Black racism, and we've learned to swallow bias, we've learned to swallow the failed leadership of elected officials, we've learned to swallow the gaslighting that somehow what we're saying we're experiencing is not really happening. I think it's important for us to learn that we must begin to elevate our voices. We need way more than people painting Black Lives Matter on the sidewalk, because last time I checked, that's not what our ancestors died for, was a painted sidewalk. God bless the gesture. We don't just need Black Lives Matter t-shirts worn by the NBA players. God bless the gesture. We need real protection and safety for Black people. And I think one of the ways that we're going to get there is for us, when we are experiencing anti-Black racism, call it out. When we are experiencing public systems and structures that we pay for with our taxes that do not do their job, we must call it out. And I just think this is another example why we've got to, as Brother Stokely Carmichael said, organize. And as Minister Farrakhan has said oftentimes, an organized lie is always more powerful than disorganized truth. And so we must organize the truth. We must organize each other and ourselves to make sure that this kind of violence does not happen.
Absolutely. And the solidarity that we received, I just want to offer some thanks to everyone. Certainly, the fire could have done much more property damage if our neighbor across the street did not run over and chase the individual out of our lot, even when he was dissuaded from trying to make a connection between it being done purposefully by the law enforcement folks who were here taking the police report. He insisted. He persisted. He came and gave us information that we never would have received without him stepping up out of anonymity. We did not know this neighbor personally. He literally walked over into our parking lot. So I just want to thank this brother Rodriguez for his courage and the way he stood up. But I just also want to thank the rest of the neighbors. I have received letters. We have received letters, our church, from neighbors, people who have said that they are not Christians. They don't believe in God. They don't attend church, but they love that our church is a part of the neighborhood. And they have sent so many letters. Some have offered to repair the damage by coming over and helping us to repaint and to do some recackling. Others have left flowers and done some amazing things. What is that saying to me? It says to me that our congregations must be vibrant parts of every neighborhood we live in. And so to all of our neighbors here in the kind of Berkeley Way, Acton Street, University, I just want to appreciate you for your love and your generosity. I want to thank all the clergy that turned up and showed out. I mean, we had clergy from Oakland, from Berkeley, from Richmond. We folks tried as far as Antioch, San Francisco, folks that came in town to stand with us. Pastor Jackie Thompson out of Allen Temple, who you saw in the video, gave not only a very important and spirited contextual prophetic declaration, but, you know, was very encouraging to me and my brother and all of us very personally, just reaching out, and all of my pastor friends, the Faith in Action East Bay clergy cohorts that showed up, Pastor Michael Smith here in the city, Pastor Ambrose, Pastor Kelly Woods, Pastor Anthony Hughes, all the pastors that showed up, our rabbi friends, Rabbi Chai, Rabbi Dev, Rabbi David Cooper, who was actually the first person to come and bring flowers and put it on the space where the trash bins had melted literally into the ground and our building had been scorched. Congregation Netivot Shalom did a great, wonderful, big, I'd say, 10 by 7 board of just messages telling us that they're praying for us and standing with us. I want to keep naming some names because I just don't want folks to feel left out. But Mayor Gus Newport, former mayor of the city of Berkeley, who showed up, he called me. He was the first elected official that called me, former elected official that called me and offered his support. Representative, our Congresswoman Barbara Lee called, and we had an extensive conversation, and she reminded me of the arson acts of the 1990s when Bill Clinton was the president, and she offered to call the mayor and the city and push them to do right and make right in this situation. So Congresswoman Barbara Lee certainly speaks for me, and I just want to appreciate her. And I could keep going, so many names, but being part of what I think we wanted to do with this moment is make sure we highlight that it is our collective solidarity that actually moved even something as simple as an apology that was written and signed by the fire chief and the Berkeley Police Department chief, something that, you know, to some may feel like a small gesture, but for Black people in this country, we are not always afforded such small gestures, which is why we continue to have to push, not just to protect ourselves, but to get the system to respond to us with the same kind of vigor and the same kind of response that they give to other people.
Absolutely. And I think this is why, to your point, we've got to really be intentional about building our collective solidarity across our differences. Listen, unity does not mean uniformity. You say that all the time, Mike, like that we don't all have to do the same thing, but we got to do something. And then we got to figure out, what does it mean for us to come together in moments like these, but not just be together in moments like these, but what's the work that we need to do when we're not in crisis moments to build our collective power and our collective solidarity so that we can really transform these cities we're in, the state that we're in, this country that we're in. It is in need of deep repair. I mean, many of us believe that there are certain functions of this country that need to go ahead and die the death that they need to die because they have been built on the backs of Black folks and other marginalized people, marginalized groups and people of color. But I do think it's important for us to continue to show up for one another. And I think we've got to continue to hold these elected officials accountable. Just because they are progressive, quote unquote, does not mean that they should get a pass. And that is on every level, from federal, state to local. we've got to continue to demand that these folks do what it is they're supposed to do, because they are doing it on our tax dollars. So I also want to extend that gratitude, particularly to Faith in Action East Bay leaders, which is, certainly the Way is a member of Faith in Action East Bay, part of Pico, California, our statewide organizing outfit of faith communities. Deep appreciation to PK Woodson and Pastor Billy Dixon and Pastor Darnell Hammock and Pastor Leslie Takanashi from over in the East Bay, and many of the folks who came out. It is our work together that will be the protection that all of us need, and so we got to keep pushing.
Yeah, and it's a concrete expression of our solidarity to make these kind of tragedies into opportunities. If anyone knows our work, me and my brother, we're not ambulance chasers out here, so we're not trying to milk any of this. We're trying to use something that the devil meant for evil and turn it into a good. We are not terrorized. We are not afraid. We are not capitulating. We are not dancing where there's no music playing or scratching where there ain't no itch. We are people who are deeply committed to the liberation of our communities and of all people who are oppressed. And we believe our institutions must stand tall and strong to ensure that this happens. And so there are some things that we want to invite you all to think about as we move forward. I'm going to invite this flyer to come onto the screen. We know that elections are now upon us. And while many of us have a very kind of necessarily agitational relationship with our elected officials, we know that every 2 years, every 3 years, every 4 years, we have an opportunity to let our voices be heard at the ballot box. Here in the Bay Area and wherever you are, it is important for you in this season to let one of your acts of solidarity be to vote, to register to vote, and to request an absentee ballot to ensure that you have an opportunity to use options as the days lead up to voting day, to exercise your ballot at the ballot box. We have a great partnership with Vote.org and our Live Free campaign and our Black Church Action Fund, where we are literally registering thousands, if not millions of folks to vote, or at least check their registration and request absentee ballots through our tool that we call rocks.online/vote. ROCKS is an acronym that stands for Rebuilding Our Collective Strength. So one of the most concrete things we want you to do is to make sure that we take advantage of this opportunity to compel you to register to vote, to check your voter registration status. As W. Kamau Bell, who was there that day, our good friend, and I want to appreciate him for coming out. I think that was his first time being out in public, responding to a church burning that happened to us, his friends. He said that we are the mayor today. A very powerful statement of self-determination. We are the mayors. We are the council members. We are the elected officials. We have an opportunity to let our vote be heard and vote people out of office whose response to Black suffering and Black pain is too anemic. I'm not saying that people don't care. We just saying we need you to care more. We need your care to be so radical that it is never at question that you are standing up for Black folks, whether it's in the public space or whether it's behind closed doors. And the way you're standing up is not bowing down to the forces that are attempting to bend our will and make us have incremental progress where we can take a big leap. That's part of the work that we have to do. You're muted, Ben.
And this actually speaks to one of the questions that came up in one of the Facebook live streams, where there was a question to both of us around what is our definition of the role of elected officials in reference to the community. And you were speaking to it right there. And I think it's important for us to recognize that the role of elected officials is to implement the will of the people, and particularly the most marginalized people in that city. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that we don't allow elected officials to escape and be more responsive to their greedy corporate interests and their corporate partners while they deny the needs of the most marginalized people in the community. You take Berkeley for a city as an example. It is no way that you should have that great University of California at Berkeley infrastructure and all of the big money that flows in and out of Berkeley, and have so many of our loved ones living alongside freeways, in tents, and in the street. It is a failure of elected officials and so-called progressive politicians. In the city where I live, Oakland, you got loved ones all throughout the city that are living unhoused. And then people wonder why we are dealing with challenges around community violence. The problem is not the people. The problem is that you all have institutionalized poverty, and you have criminalized the effects of Black people and brown people living in impoverished conditions. So I think the role of elected officials is to protect the most marginalized people in the city, because we know that when Black lives matter, all lives matter. And when the people who are closest to the pain are actually having their needs centered in the conversation, it will create uplift for everyone. So I think we should, as we vote and as we participate in these elections coming up, just because somebody looks like you doesn't mean that they have the leadership to be providing plans for what it is that we need to be doing. So we should be demanding that all elected officials and people who are seeking office have a real plan for the people who are most oppressed in our communities, and we must hold them accountable.
Absolutely. And again, the accountability must be one that is grounded out of deep love, not out of animus, out of a sense of fairness and justice, not out of a sense of misplaced or displaced loyalty. Too bad many of our elected officials see their election into office as a lifetime appointment versus a results-oriented evaluation and business. We must make sure that our elected officials here locally are fighting, literally fighting for the well-being of every single person. And to your point with the unhoused, there are many who believe in the city of Berkeley and the police department, fire department, that the trash bin was set afire by a unhoused person because of a string of trash bin fires. But there's no proof to verify that whatsoever. But my response to them has still been that is still an indictment on us as a community, that we have individuals outside probably with mental health issues, or they feel so cold that they are setting trash bins on fire. What does that mean? That we can't figure out ways to legislate our tax base in ways to provide housing and mental health support for our loved ones. It's not trying to be, someone who's just looking for a way to tie this all the way back to defund the police all the time. But it is indeed the case that if we spent more of our tax dollars on resourcing mental health, unhoused issues, food programs, shelter programs, then we likely would not have to spend all these resources on the back end when the manifestation of our failure to provide for the least among us rears its head. And so it's very important for all of us to make these connections. You voting locally for people who can give you concrete solutions that are time bound. Concrete solutions that are time bound. It should not take our lifetime, my parents' lifetime, my grandparents' lifetime to stop police departments from shooting us in the street. It should not take my lifetime and my daughter's lifetime and my grandchildren's lifetime to solve the problem of homelessness in the most wealthy part of the country. These are failures to govern. And we must have elected officials who are willing to look at these problems with a solution-oriented frame that is a radical frame, a sense of urgency frame, not incremental progress that continues to allow corporate interests to profit.
Yeah.
Police departments to profit off of the misery of our communities. This thing that happened in our church, in my estimation, is another expression of the kind of animus that is directed towards Black institutions that are attempting to stand up and fight back against these kinds of challenges. It could be a response. The fighting back that we're doing could be against the violence that may be haphazard, if it's an act of vandalism, or it could be in an aggressive manner against the actions of arson. Either way, the attack on our building is an expression of that. And I was told that there have been other acts of arson and vandalism in other Black churches across the Bay Area over the last several months. Some folks have just been unwilling to vocalize it. I want to tell all of our Black pastors and loved ones, it's time for us to bring this stuff out into the public and demand that our elected officials stand up and protect and provide service to our communities who still pay taxes.
Absolutely. And we cannot celebrate the great legacy of John Lewis and lift up his quotes around when you see a problem, get in the way and go out and make good trouble. So we love those quotes, but we're going to have to live into those quotes. And so I think it's important for all of us as we look at what's happening over the next couple months in this country. Don't just quote John Lewis about getting in the way. You get in the way. Get in the way in the election. Get in the way by participating with your local city council meetings. Get in the way by participating in local organizing campaigns. Make good trouble. Let's hold the people who seek elected office accountable. I always have to remind them, you do not have to be an elected official. You don't have to be a police chief. It is not your birthright to have to be in this position. You can get out of these positions if you don't want to be accountable. And I think the other thing that we've got to make sure that we just hold folks accountable to. I was in a call the other day talking about some local money, and some folks that were working for the city were talking about their budget. And I told them, I said, it's not your budget, it's the people's money. So I should not be asking you about money that is coming out of my check and all these other people's check in the city about the way we want to spend those resources to save our loved ones who are caught up in the effects of you all's broken down government system. And you want to tell me about your budget. This is not your budget. This is the people's budget. And you should use the resources in the way that we, the people, say we want them used. Let's make sure that we stay involved, that we stay locked in. I know folks are not out in the streets the way we were the first couple months after George Floyd's murder and Breonna Taylor's murder and Rashard Brooks' murder and Ahmaud Arbery's murder, but we must get back out in the way. If that means protest, get involved in protest. If that means making sure not just that you're registered to vote, but that the people you know are registered to vote, that you make sure you're having conversations about important propositions that are on your ballot, whether you're in California or somewhere in the Northwest, across the country, in the South. Find out what's on the ballot. Let's make sure that we really get in the way, because our lives and the people that we love depend on it.
Well, I think we're going to start wrapping up. I just, again, wanted to appreciate everyone for your support. We have indeed installed a security system here that literally covers 360 degrees of our building. I want to appreciate Ron Muhammad and the Elite Services security firm for really being great consultants with our church and getting the cameras up within 3 or 4 days of the incident. They've also helped to secure my home and make sure that we're in a good place. So I just want to appreciate him. Want to appreciate the Community Ready Corps who jumped in and provided some on-site security for us while the systems were getting put up for the 3 or 4 days following this incident. I just want to appreciate everyone again who stood with us, and to all the members of the Way. I just want to thank you for your solidarity with our church and with your pastor. This was an attack on all of us. But by the grace of God, we will continue to emerge. We will continue to proclaim from the top of our lungs that no weapon formed against the people of God will be able to prosper, and every tongue that rises against God's will, it will be brought down to the ground. We are a people of great faith, of great liberation, of great commitment. We got to stay organized. We got to stay together, and we got to get our people put in a position where these kinds of fights don't have to happen because we have to do Herculean work to make the responses come from our elected officials. So that's why we vote. We vote often as an act of defense to keep things from getting worse, or we vote as an act of offense to try to take hold of some positions of power where we feel we can get an upgrade. And so look at your ballot this cycle and make sure you're taking a hard look at your electoral options in your city council races, in your mayoral races, in your sheriff and prosecutor races, in your gubernatorial races, in your state senate and legislature races, in your U.S. Congress and federal Senate races, certainly in the presidential race. Make sure the ballot initiatives that you're focusing on. Here in the city of Berkeley, there is a police reform bill around civilian oversight. I endorse that bill, and I want you to endorse that bill. We ought to make and continue to make our law enforcement services accountable to the people, more accountable every day until we no longer need law enforcement in our communities at all. So I want you all to keep pushing yourself to stay engaged and stay involved. As Barack Obama said, I think pretty powerfully, really kind of mimicking what I think many of our loved ones in the streets and across the history of our struggle have said. Don't let anyone steal this democracy, steal your agency, steal your voice from you. Vote, register to vote, make your voice heard, and let's keep pushing till the victory is won. Any final words, Ben? You're muted.
You think I will figure this out? I think I'm starting to run out of all of these video conferences juice. You know, I've been forgetting to unmute lately. Just want to say thank you to everybody. Appreciate the love and support. Let's take this next 2 months and let's hit it. Appreciate y'all. Let's all take care of ourselves and each other.
God bless everyone. Stay connected, stay tapped in. We no longer need any donations. So if you feel the need to donate, please donate to a racial justice group near you. Donate to a homeless services organization. Donate to a Get Out the Vote organization. But the way is great on the donations. They are helping us to repair and be secure. And you all have done much more than our wildest dreams and imaginations. Still feel free to send any love letters to us. We love to read them. We love to receive them. And if you ever need anything from us, please reach out. We want to be good partners and comrades in the struggle for both the justice that is our birthright. We're going to keep working till the kingdom of God is on earth as it is in heaven. God bless everyone. We'll see you in the streets. See you in the next